In our last videos, we've demonstrated a list activity that will show us a list of results, and we've also created a menu that will allow us to navigate from screen to screen. In this video, we're going to create a new details view page that will show plant details for a selected plant. So, if I go to plant places on the web, we'll see that we have a unique experience for the web versus the experience that we'll have on the mobile device. Okay, so if I type in pawpaw and then search, that'll work. Okay, and then I click on the pawpaw plant, we see that we have navigation across the top and the side for the pawpaw. Now, we see that we have a unique plant ID, okay, plant ID 82, and we also see that we have navigation on the top and the left. The problem is, if we were to view this on a mobile device, the navigation would eat up most of the screen real estate that we have. So one trick we can have to make this a little bit better is we can add a parameter to the URL. Let me see if I can focus this on the right side there. And we can say in source equals mobile. And what that will do is it will give us the exact same page, but without the top and the left navigation. Okay, that's a lot easier to read on a device with limited real estate, because we can now see a lot of the content without being bothered with the top and the left navigation. So what we want to do is make a web view that will show this information in a little web monitor. And we want to call that web view from the plant search results page. So I'm going to click in my Eclipse window and choose Control M. Whoops, looks like I went too fast there. And a web view is kind of like a mini browser inside of our application. We can definitely render a browser by doing an implicit intent, and that's probably a pretty good way to do it, because we can reach out and send someone to the browser. But with the web view, we keep them within our application instead of actually sending them to an external application. So one of the things we're going to need for this is a new layout. So I'll say new, and then other, and then we're going to say Android XML file, and we'll give it a moment. And it recognizes that it needs to create a layout. So it could really be any kind of layout, because we only have one thing on there, and that's going to be our web view. We'll go ahead and choose linear layout, will be fine. So we need to give it a file name. We'll call it plant details. And next, and I think we're good, and we go ahead and choose finish. So this is going to be a very simple layout. Okay, so we let it come up, and now I will Control M so that we can focus in on the WYSIWYG editor. Under Composite, there's something called WebView. Let's go ahead and drag and drop that straight on. Okay, and that consumes the entire screen. It comes up as WebView 1. I never like the default IDs it gives things, so we can just call it, well, WebView 1 is just as good as anything else, but we'll call it Plant Details Web View. Something like that is just fine. And then we'll choose OK. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to associate this with an activity. So I'm going to save our work so far, and then I'm going to Control M, and we'll make a new activity for this, and we'll load this as the layout. Okay, so Control M, and scroll up, and UI, and we're going to say new class, and we'll say plant details activity. Now remember, in a previous lecture we made that intermediate plant places activity that has all the menus stuff. So I want to choose that, and if I just type the capital letters PPA, plant places activity, okay, it will appear in this list. Or if I prefer, I can type out the whole name, but in any case I'm going to select the plant places activity that we made earlier that has all of the web view information in it. I'm sorry, that has all the menu information in it. So then I choose OK. Now from here, accessing the web view and loading it with the URL is quite simple. So I'm going to choose Control M. And as we know, usually the first thing we want to do is override the onCreate method. So I type onCreate, hold Control, hit Enter. I look for the one that accepts a bundle. And there we go. And once we've done that, we want to associate this activity with a layout. So we choose Set Content View. And we'll say r.layout, whoops, r.layout plan, oh, did I choose the wrong one? Sorry, one second. Oh, I did. Hang on one second. It chose the incorrect, let me remove that. It chose the incorrect R file. I have several projects open, so it's not a big surprise. R.layout, and we will choose this guy here. Plant details, that'll work. Okay, now we want to get access to the web view on this layout. So we say get view, find view by ID, r.id plant details web view. Okay, now I want to take a look at this because we've always just assumed away what happens. Let's take a look what actually happens in the layout. In the layout, I can choose plant details here and it will show me the XML that gets created. And what we'll see is there's this thing called a linear layout. Now a linear layout is actually a class, okay? If I look at linear layout, that's a class that comes to us from Android, okay? And linear layout extends something called a view group. Let's see, if I choose Control T, it will show me the hierarchy. Remember we talked about that concept of the plant places activity, which is the superclass. Same thing here. Linear layout has a superclass called view group. And what that is that means it can contain a group of views. Now what's a view? That is any widget that we would put on a layout. So a view group is a special class that basically acts like a layout. It's something that can hold multiple widgets on a screen. Okay? Okay, within that we've put a web view. Now once again, when you see this XML tag, it typically maps up directly with a Java class, and in this case the Java class is called WebView. Now I don't have source attachment, so it gives me this screen, but we can still see the hierarchy. A web view is a view. It is a component that we can put on the component that we can put on a layout. Okay, so when we are using our WYSIWYG editor, what we're actually creating, okay, with this WYSIWYG editor, what we're actually creating is this XML file under the covers. A perfectly valid XML file. It will have a little comment up here, and then it will have a root element, which is the element which opens and closes the XML file. And then within that, it will have any widgets that we add to the XML file. If we see this thing @ID, what that means is we want the Android system to make a unique identifier for this widget so that we can access it later. Okay, we want the Android system to make a unique identifier for this that we can access later using this name. Okay, so if we go back to our details view, we should see r.id and then that same name. So this name here is the same thing as the name we see in our XML here. Those two are one and the same. Behind the scenes, Android is just making a unique identifier that ties those two together. Okay, now when we ask for this item, we need to make it a web view. Okay, in other words, when I call find view by ID, the trick is it's going to return to me a variable of type view, and we have to tell it that we understand the superclasses of view, but we actually want the subclass called web view, and that requires a little bit of casting. So with my cursor on this method, I hold down Control and hit 1, and I say assign statement to new field. I choose field instead of local variable because we're going to be using this in multiple methods, and if that's the case, we want to choose a new field. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to say private. Now instead of view, which is the default, I'm going to call it web view, and instead of find by ID, I'll call it plant details web view. And tab through. Whoops, it switched on me. Plant details web view. Tab through and enter. And we should be all set. Okay, we're good. Okay, so whoops, it changed again. Sometimes that gets a little bit tricky, doesn't it? So I change this to WebView. The reason I want to change it to WebView is that will allow me to set the URL on it. So, okay, first of all, I need to take care of red lines. It doesn't know what this WebView is, so I'm going to hold down Control-Shift-O to organize imports. There we go. Next, it's confused that I'm getting a view and saving it into a web view, so I need to add a cast, like so. And there we go. Okay, so it's casted. Now what I can do is I can say plant details web view. And 1 second. I'm going to tell it to turn on JavaScript, so I'm going to say get settings. Whoops, almost. Set JavaScript enabled, and we'll say true. Okay. Next, plant details view. Plant details web view. Load URL. And I'm going to pass it a URL. Could be http www.plantplaces.com, something like that. We'll just start with this. Okay. We'll get more complex in a moment, but we'll start with this. Okay, so turn on JavaScript and load the given URL and save. Okay. Now we want to call this from the plant details activity, so we know there are a couple things we need to do. First, we need to register this activity with the Android manifest. Second, from the plant details activity, we need to call this activity. So I go to the Android manifest. We'll start with that part. And go to the GUI builder, Control M, so we can focus and see it. And I'm going to go over and choose Add. And I'm going to choose top level activity. Okay. Name, we'll browse and we'll say plant details activity. There we go. And save. So now it's been registered in the Android manifest. So we'll Control M. Next, what we'll do is we'll go to the plant results activity. Remember, that's the guy that has the list. And I'm going to Control M. And there's a special method called when we click on an item in the list, and it's called, no surprise, on list item click. I'll start typing, and I will hold Control and hit space to let it autocomplete. Hit enter. Okay. Put a little message here. This will be invoked when we click an item in the list. Okay. So what we're going to do now. Don't think we need any of that. I'm going to say intent, plant details, wrong spelling. Plant details intent equals new intent, this, comma, plant details activity dot class. And then we'll say start activity, plant details intent. Again, we're just going to try it out, Control-Shift-O to organize imports. We're just going to try it out to see if it works. There is one more thing I need to do. I need to go into the Android manifest and I need to request permission to use the internet and also network state. So I'll go into the Android manifest. To be honest, I don't know if I need it. I'm not certain if I need network state or not, but I know for sure I need internet. We'll go ahead and add both. So I'm going to ask for permission. Okay. And it'll take just a moment for this to come up. Hopefully. Okay. Let me choose add. Okay, permission. Okay. Well, it doesn't seem to be too happy, does it? Oh, uses permission. That okay, sorry. Whoops. Okay. Remove. Don't need that. Yeah. I did the wrong one. I meant uses permission. I did permission instead. Okay. I do that frequently, to be honest with you. Yes. Okay, add uses permission. There we go. And then I can pick the permission from the drop down. So let me move this over so we can see it. And we're going to choose internet. Okay, and save. Okay, we'll go ahead and add uses permission. Boom. And access network state. Okay. The rule with Android is you must request all the permissions you need, but no more. So you should request no more than the permissions you need. I probably need to double check the network state because of that. Okay, so I save this and I Control M, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load up the emulator and see what we can see. One moment, please. So debug. Android application, we'll go ahead and check the running emulator that we have now. It should be just a moment.